We have quite a few stories here today, so let's just jump into the next one here. We have the Justice Department dismissing a False Claims Act case, or cases, sorry, without stating the reasons. Can you walk us through this one?
So this was something that Senator Chuck Grassley, a Republican senator, in uh, on National Whistleblower Appreciation Day, or connected to his speech around National Whistleblower Appreciation Day, he raised this issue, and he's working on legislation that would amend the False Claims Act or clarify this matter so that it was no longer a problem for whistleblowers. And yes, I said Chuck Grassley. I'm talking about someone who is pretty abominable on a lot of other issues, but in fact, he was involved in crafting the False Claims Act, which passed back in 1986. And so far, according to Chuck Grassley, over $62 billion has been recovered for taxpayers as a result of this act that allows people to come forward as whistleblowers and sue fraudsters on behalf of the federal government. Well, what's happening right now under Donald Trump is an increase in this trend of seeing cases submitted by whistleblowers who allege fraud and other abuses related that fall under the False Claims Act. And the Department of Justice is dismissing these cases that are brought, and they're not giving any kind of reasoning as to why they can't pursue these cases. And as Chuck Grassley says, and I agree with him, if there are serious allegations of fraud against the government, the Attorney General should have to state the legitimate reasons for deciding not to pursue them in court. That's just common sense. I think it is just common sense. And so he's proposing a legislation that will remove an ambiguity that has been taken advantage of by the Trump administration. And these amendments, in his view, would empower whistleblowers to be able to get more clarity, because if the Justice Department is going to reject them, then you can have them rebut that rejection. I think the whole point here, though, is that the Justice Department doesn't want to have to deal with whistleblowers coming after them and saying they are wrong to reject these cases. But these False Claims Act cases do have an impact. They do have an effect. And we've covered False Claims Act cases. In fact, we have one coming up here that we're going to cover after this story. But it does, it is a way, even though we're talking about companies that are making billions upon billions of dollars, it is a way for that whistleblower to have what they're seeing acknowledged in public. And that's a big deal, because there are very few mechanisms for challenging corporate malfeasance, because we have so much corporate control and corporate influence in this country. And so this is one small way that whistleblower gets to come forward and have what they've been saying, perhaps internally to the corporation, acknowledged by a third party, a court, have a Justice Department prosecutor back them up that what they've seen is in fact fraudulent activity.
Thank you. Yeah, let's move on to that next story here. We have fake small businesses exposed by whistleblowers received COVID-19 federal loan. What is this story?
And so there's this fake small business that POGO, again, the Project on Government Oversight, highlighted. There's a company called Atlantic Diving Supply that obtained a Paycheck Protection Program loan. So this is something that we have covered over at Shadowproof. We did some reporting about how some of these loans went to corporations, or actually went to Congress people. Members of Congress were getting them for their own businesses. I encourage you to go read that. That was done as part of our freelance journalism that was funded through a relief fund that we put together for journalists back in May. And so this is a critical issue, this abuse of obtaining these loans. We've seen other companies reported. And so they got a loan worth between $2 million and $5 million, apparently. And I guess they claim that the current economic uncertainty made this loan request necessary to support ongoing operations. But Atlantic Diving Supply is actually the 24th largest federal contractor as of 2019 and they provide equipment to the U.S. military, and they also provide equipment to the Department of Homeland Security. This involves everything, according to Pogo, from weapons to drones. And there's also a lawsuit that they've been involved in that is a False Claims Act lawsuit, and it involves fraud. And they recently settled this suit. They were alleged to have defrauded the federal government by wrongly obtaining $2.8 billion in contracts that were meant to go to small businesses. And the Justice Department said that the settlement ranked as the largest False Claims Act recovery based on allegations of small business contracting fraud. And so this is an example of what we're talking about here when we say that we need to have a tightening of the law so that there isn't ambiguity for the Justice Department to get out of giving people reasons, giving whistleblowers reasons why they're not going to pursue lawsuits. Because you're taking money, in this case, money that should have gone to small businesses. I suppose you're able to compensate for that by pursuing a False Claims Act lawsuit against them for going after money that shouldn't be available to a corporation that can do just as well on its own.